Well, my name is Jack Carncross, and naturally, a Marine. Semper Fi.
Semper Fi, there you go. Let's start with, I can see here you enlisted. What made you decide to enlist?
We were losing the war. I was always, as a younger kid, I was always interested in World War I. And when the war started in Europe, I kept up to date. My mother and dad were both avid newspaper readers, and listening to the radio and finding out. And the RAF and whatnot, and the Battle of Britain, and studied the airplanes that they had, Spitfires and the whatnot. And then when we got in it, I was in high school, and 42, but I mean 41 was when it first started, the end of 41. And in 42, we were just losing our blood everywhere. But I mean, United States, all of the European countries. Hitler was trying to knock England out, couldn't get it done, but following all of that, and then when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, naturally all of us that age remember where we were, what happened, and it was just, I don't know how to describe the feeling. And got to high school, and we were all the boys in high school. It was a big high school, East Side High in East St. Louis. I graduated from that in 2002. And I started there in 1939. You talk about you taking a few years. But I finally got my diploma the same year as my grandson from high school. But anyhow, I just doing the best I could in high school. And I had taken summer course at 42 because I was 17 in July of 42. And in August, I wanted to enlist. And I'd had a little disagreement around the house with my mother on a Saturday. And she wasn't happy with me, and I wasn't happy with her. I have found out later that she was, now I realize that she was early stages of Alzheimer's. And didn't hear of it just a few years ago. But nevertheless, I just wasn't happy at home, wasn't happy with what I saw, and wasn't familiar at all with the Marine Corps. Had a neighbor boy that a couple of years older than me. And if you remember when you're 11 years old and you got a guy in the neighborhood that's 12 got to go to Boy Scouts, he wasn't old enough. When the boy in the neighborhood got a two-wheel bicycle and you wasn't old enough. Well, that's the way I was with him. And he went in the Marine Corps. And I thought there was nothing in the world Bobby Fisher couldn't handle. And he wrote home. Naturally, I got to read his letters because his mama had been killed in a car wreck a few years before. He was the oldest child, and it was a girl, and then a younger boy that I was buddying with particularly. But anyhow, he'd write home, and he would just cry his eyes out, how tough it was. And that, I couldn't figure out why. Bobby Fisher found something he couldn't handle, the Marine Corps. Still didn't really make a big impact on me. I guess that's the word I want to use. But went to high school that day. My dad always dropped me off on his way to work. And he didn't know about the problem with my mother that day. And so it was a usual Sunday. I had an older sister that had left home and was married. And I was around home that Sunday, just typical Sunday. On Monday morning when he dropped me off for school, I went in, talked to a buddy of mine, Jess Murphy, and another one, Earl Meehan. And I told him I'd go to enlist. And here we are too. So we all three went down, and we went through And the one Earl Bean, he was talking, he liked what the Navy had. And Jess Murphy said he would like Army. And they asked me which one you like. I said, let's go talk to the Marines. And I went over there, them suckers were all gussied up in their dress blues, you know, and talked to them. And I told them about this Bobby Fisher. They said, oh, it's rough. It's rough. And three of us went outside and talked. Went 1, 2, 3. And I went right back and signed up. And would you believe it, at that time, the war was on, and I had to get 3 recommendations for people that had known me and knew me to be able to enlist in the Marine Corps. And, of course, I had to get parents' permission. And I knew that was going to be a tough hill to climb. And anyhow, while I went home after closing the school, had those papers, and man, I'm excited, you know. Them dress blues, damn, they were pretty. And I was going to find out what Bobby Fisher couldn't stand. To learn all this stuff. And I was always anxious to learn. An avid reader, still am. But anyhow, I went home, told my mother. She just turned around and laughed at me. Said, no, I won't sign no papers for you, and your dad won't. So he got home from work that night. Mother told me before I had the guts enough to say. And so we sat and we argued. Want to sign the papers, and they wouldn't sign. And we talked along, you know, and they wouldn't sign. And I finally pinned them down to the reason they wouldn't sign. She didn't want to sign no papers in case something happened to me. She could take the blame from him. And it was vice versa. And I said, hell, I can handle that. You can both sign. Boy, and I had to pin it against the wall. I learned how to kind of calm them years before. And anyhow, they agreed to that. And I already had the paper signed. I got the pastor to church, and the old guy that was, my folks were buying the house from, they'd had it built, and Dad was making his payments, $27.50 a month. And anyhow, they signed the papers, and I went down the next day, took the papers all in and presented them to the recruiters. They signed me up, and I was due to leave in about 10 days. So I went back to the high school and asked, could I go to school those days? And I had never liked the assistant principal, and he liked me even less. He said, you're going to be a smart ass. And I said, no more than I ever was. I said, I'd like to go because I want to play one more football game. I got to sit on the bench. I was never good enough to. I didn't even get to play when we was ahead 63-0. I told you how good I was. But anyhow, I got to go, and I told him, I said, no, I'll be first in the classes because I got nothing else to do. And I want to talk to the kids. I mean, some of them. But I've taken a public speaking course. And they hit on me because usually all you did was get up and make an announcement about there going to be such and so game, you know, and this kind of stuff. And I thought I'd shoot him a bomb. And I got up and I told them that I had enlisted and was leaving in the Marine Corps in a few days. And I said, my thoughts on this are with all of you guys. I said, you're going to wind up in the military. I said, because we ain't going to win this war. And hopefully we don't lose it. We're in a position to lose it. I said, if you look and you study it, I know a lot of you are, because we're together, in classes together. I said, but you're not teaching us on this. This is a boy thing. And a lot of us have talked to our dads. Some of their dads had been in World War I. Uncles, you know, whatnot. My dad was never in. But anyhow, I got up and I said, you're going to be in. So be thinking about it. And if any of you want to write to me, I said, my folks will have my address if you want to ask questions. I said, because right now I can't answer any of them other than I'm leaving East St. Louis. I don't know what it was now. I think the 23rd of August or something like that. I'll be at the recruiting office here in East St. Louis. I said, other than that, I know I'm going over to St. Louis, and then I'm going to San Diego for boot camp. Basic training boot camp, they call it. And I never got a letter from them. But it wound up that Earl Meehan went ahead. They didn't one of those two guys enlist at the time. They waited until they graduated in the spring. And we kept in touch, but never close. And Jess Murphy got shot up in Europe. Went in the landing, Normandy and whatnot. I don't know just when. Yeah, in that when they made the landings in Europe, I don't think he was original landings or anything. But I never knew what he was, other than he said he was in an infantry division. And Earl Meehan wound up on tin cans in the Pacific. Our paths never crossed. But would you believe that Bobby Fisher and I wound up on the same little old island? It wasn't as big as Adams County. And I wrote home and asked for his address. And when my folks sent me Bobby's address, I recognized the outfit he was in was on the island I was on. Well, we were loading up. We were getting ready to go to Bougainville. That was my first landing. 3rd Marine Division, 21st Regiment. And the whole division was green. But they had some guys in it that weren't. You know what I mean? That formed, but they had some other guys. Some at Benefit Canal, Guadalcanal that is, and some of it, Kwajalein, in a Weetalk in the Marshall Islands. They were coming down Central Pacific, we was going up south. But anyhow, we organized there, and Bobby Fisher and I got to spend a day together. He was in a motor transport company or whatever, I don't know how big it was. And I went over and visited with him. The top sergeant let me go over, spend the day. And I hitchhiked over there, going to walk really, and spent the day riding in the truck with him because he was hauling stuff to the ships that we were to be on, I mean, the convoy. And we got to spend the day together. And then I went on and into Bougainville, and that was interesting.
I know something like that happened. That's pretty next door neighbor in the same island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was. I mean, and it was a little island. It was Vanika, Vanika, in the Russell Islands. It was about 65 miles north of Guadalcanal. And when the first guys that went into there, they found Jap stuff. I mean, just recently they abandoned the island. And the guy said when they went in, there had been 2 Japs there with a Daisy BB gun. They could have kept them from landing. Said because they were so seasick they'd gone in PT boats.
Oh, yeah.
And said these guys had, they had well, I've talked here too much. You're supposed to ask questions.
Great. Keep going. I love your stories. I want to keep telling me
Well, what I mean, went through Bougainville. We lost guys on Bougainville. The thing I remember about it most was going in off the ship, because we had to go down the cargo nets over the side in the small boats. And I was fortunate enough to draw nets off the bow. Well, the bow goes in like this, and those nets go like this. So there's nothing to, you're about this with 100 pounds, well, it felt like 200 on your back, trying to get down to that, and the boat you're trying to go in is like this. And there's guys losing their hold and going down, you know. They go right to the bottom. And in fact, our Protestant chaplain was lost that way. But he went down, and he should have got into the boat, and he didn't. The boat went down. He went down another step, and it come up and caught his legs, and they got him back up. So we had all we had then was the Catholic chaplain, Padre Riley. Man, if you was anti-Catholic, you learned to love the priest. What a guy! What a guy! But we was up on one of the nights we was on there, just before we got to what they call that Hills of Poppin Ridge. And we were dug in. And the Japs, when they would hit us, it'd be at night more than daytime. And we were dug in and knew they'd probably come, or when, or how many, or whatever. Scared to death. Marines don't admit that. They will to one another, and they will now.
Right.
But you didn't know what to expect. But anyhow, you hear a little rustle in the bushes or whatnot. Well, man, you're all ready to let go of that M1. You don't care who, what, when, or where. If it's your mama, she better learn to have dug a deep hole. Yeah, but anyhow, you hear old gruff voice said, "Don't shoot, fellers, it's me, Padre Riley." So he'd crawl up. And the old devil had a bottle of whiskey. And he'd say, one little sip, fellers? Well, what did we were the only drink. Let's see, on Bougainville, I was 18 by then. And, but anyhow, he'd give you the bottle, and he'd put his hand against your throat. And that Adam's apple better not bounce but once. He said, it's got to go around. And he was smoking he wasn't smoking an old cigar, but he had it. And it was well chewed, you know. And he said, "You want a puff?" and it was soggy. He could clear up his wrist. Nobody took him up on that. But that was just one of the examples of Padre Riley.
Yeah, wow.
Because, pardon?
Sounds like a neat guy.
Oh, he was. Well, it's like this fella here.
Right.
But I mean, if you know him, he's a very, very neat guy. Lovable gentleman. But anyhow, I shot my first Jap on Bougainville. What I mean, you never know what you're doing in a firefight, which you just letting go, you know.
What did it feel like when that happened?
Rabbit hunting.
Really?
Yeah, and I've always thought since then, since I've talked to guys that I knew, what I mean, after the war was over, friends I had that was in the Army. Man, I'm glad I wasn't in Europe. Because fighting a German or an Italian, they take their helmet off and look just like us. No matter what a Jap, they lose a Jap. And it was just like, I got two, rabbit hunting. I've only ever sighted in on two Japs, one on Bougainville, that had to be done, you know, because he was in a position to shoot back. And I've never had any qualms. But I also killed one shot one down my rifle barrel on Guap. And he was a fat little fella. I think he was a cook. And we were going down the Orote Peninsula, sweeping down it. There was a lot more Japs on it than the intelligence had predicted. So it was tougher than what we thought. It took longer. But anyhow, they come across this little old shed-like building, you know, all down been there for years. And we was along in a skirmish line. And I happened to come right on this, and the guy's on the other side. Well, I kicked the door down. I looked inside, and I was already fire. And this Jap on the far side looking out. And he'd have possibly, in a position to shoot us in the back after we'd gone by. Because there were still a few of them in, they call it little pinholes. They'd dig a little hole, so big around, be down in it with like a fly trap thing. And they'd pop up on you after you pass through. And so as he was starting to turn at me, I shot him. And I shot to kill. And I didn't have to shoot to kill. Well, we didn't have time to take prisoners and whatnot, you know, all of that BS. And probably didn't have nobody to give them to. And so I could have knocked him down and let him live, and corpsmen take care of him, because they take care of our corpsmen would take care of their wounded, same as ours. And they were taking care of him. But I didn't think in time. What I mean, it was, but I think back now and wish I had killed him.
It's not like you just reacted.
Yeah, it was more reaction. That's the reason they give you a close order drill. You get out there, so somebody says, column left march, you do it. And they get in there and they say, fire your rifle. You do it. And it was just reaction. Of course, there could have been more where you just lay down, you see rustling in the bushes and 10 guys fire 8 rounds in there, and you find 2 dead chaps who knows did what. But one time during the night, heard a lot of rustling out in the brushes. Man, you never heard so many weapons fire in your life. The next day there was a cow that was hammered. If there hadn't been 500 rounds at that cow, there wasn't one. But you know, Cook got a hold of that devil later. We got meat.
Exactly.
We had good times, what I mean, laughable times. And they're the ones you remember. Because I think your brain puts the others aside. You know, because you sit there and you have a guy that you've trained with, you've bunked in tents or whatnot, on army cots with, ate meals together, went to church together, not every Sunday, but you made all of them the closer combat guys. One day old saying said there's no atheists in foxholes. They used to tell what I made when we were aboard ship and getting ready to go into combat. And the chaplains would have church services on the fantail, and they said that ship would go like this. Everybody would be back there. But you've done things like that with, and you're going along in the line, and all at once he's hit. And move on, and later you find out, you don't know whether he was killed or not. But the corpsmen got him, and they took him back to aid and put him aboard a hospital ship or whatnot. And you never know. And at the time, what I mean, after you'd gone through the next one, like with us, it was Guam, a lot of them, most of us. Some of those, same thing happened. But it could have happened to you. You never know. But anyhow, after the war, you think about it, but not right away. What I mean, hell, you're busy getting a job, trying to earn a buck, make a living, having babies, and all that type of thing. And it's a few years later. With me, the few years was I was recalled for Korea. I was in the reserve because I had made corporal during World War II. The stripes are hard to come by in the Marine Corps. What I mean, damn hard to come by. And I was proud of my 2 stripes. And I thought, well, I'm proud because I was still only, I guess I was 20 at the time I got discharged. And because I was one of the first groups of Marines to be discharged on points on the West Coast. I was in the right place at the right time. And anyhow, I was discharged the 5th of October, and that was only 2 months after they dropped the atom bomb. And we were all geared, you know, to go into Japan. And anyhow, I was still in the States where I had come back and due to go out again. That's another long story. But anyhow, when I was recalled for Korea, why, I was at Cherry Point, North Carolina, an air base, Marine Air Station. And I got involved in that by mistake when I was discharged in World War II. By being early, and they didn't know how to handle it. But nevertheless, when I was there, and these guys start rolling in from all over, there was a dozen of them. We knew each other in World War II. You know, and then right away you start wondering about, well, I can remember one of them. It was very odd. His name was George Correa, who was recalled from the Korean War. And anyhow, we were talking, got to talking about several mutual friends, what had become of them. And didn't know. I had one guy I had kept in touch with because his name was Canada, C-A-N, mine's Carncross, C-A-R. So we were together alphabetically in boot camp and whatnot. And I pulled my time on him because he enlisted, was sworn in Milwaukee in the afternoon, and I was sworn in St. Louis in the morning. I had, 3-4 hours on it. Well, then he was living in Arkansas. He'd married a girl from Arkansas, and I had been in East St. Louis, but was now living in Springfield. That's why I married a girl from there. I wanted to live in the St. Louis area. She wanted to live in the Springfield area, so we compromised. We lived in Springfield. But it was good. Springfield was good for me. I had a lot of breaks there. I think I made most of them, but breaks nevertheless. Did all right. None of the kids ever went hungry. And had a few bucks saved when we retired. But nevertheless, to get back, when he found out that I'd been recalled, he rushed down and enlisted. Re-upped. And in the Marine Corps again. And he had got then involved in marine aviation. And he did quite well. He wound up as MT Sergeant, Master Technical Sergeant, run radar in Marine night fighters. And he operated more dollars worth of radar equipment in that airplane than the pilot did. And he was a tech sergeant and an MT sergeant. And was a major flying the airplane, which I guess makes sense. But anyhow, he stayed in the Corps. And I had time on him there too. But he stayed in the Corps. After the Korean War, he stayed in. And I guess he had pulled about 16, 17 years. And he got in trouble in the Marine Corps. Not of his doing. His daddy-in-law was a big rice farmer in Arkansas, involved in politics. He knew Governor Faubus and all of this bit. Well, Harry was stationed at Cherry Point, North Carolina at that time. And his wife had down mental problems and the whole bit. And she was in Arkansas with her folks. And her daddy wanted Harry to come over there, back to Arkansas, because of their base in Memphis. And he said, I can give it a try, see what happens. Well, the first thing Harry knew, he was living in base housing because of his wife, over there. And one Sunday morning, officer of the day come in, and to get on your feet, she's SOB. And Harry, you know what I mean, well, snap two. You don't sleep indoors, Marine Corps, but he snapped two for this officer of the day, which was a captain. And he said, get overnight bag, something in it to keep a day or two. He said, you go over the flight line, you're flying to Memphis. You're transferred to Memphis as of right now. And Harry said, what? And he said, don't pull that BS with me, boy. Called him a master sergeant boy. You don't do that. But the captain got away with it. He was a captain. But nevertheless, why, come to find out, his daddy-in-law had pulled political strings. And you'd kill yourself if you ever do that. Well, Harry was up to re-enlist in, I don't know, he had 6 months or so to pull on that hitch. Well, he was going to re-up again. He was figured on 30. And so he said he had to get out of the Marine Corps. So he went out of the Marine Corps, went down the street and enlisted the Air Force. They put him, same airplane, same job, made him a major. And he retired as a light colonel from the Air Force about 6, 7, 8 years later. And he had picked up enough college courses that he started teaching in a college, I don't know where. But his wife got pretty well all right, said they. Well, we got, the newsletter at Christmas, and they're still doing well. And Harry Robert Kennedy, I remember when that son of a gun, his locker was in back of mine. And he had an allotment for his mama. So he wasn't making much money. Hell, I was getting $50 a month, and they was only taking out about 10 or 12. And that son of a gun, he'd run out of clothes. So the screws on the locker, that they backed up to one another, you take screws out of his locker and get my clean clothes out, throw his dirty. And I knew I was going through a lot of clothes, but I couldn't figure out why. And he didn't tell me about that till we were in for Korea. Good friend. But after he was in after the war, wife and I and some of our kids went to visit them over at Cherry Point one time, and then after he was in the Air Force. He lived a lot better in the Air Force. He had a nice brick home. Oh, it's a funny life. But again, to get back, Guam, if you remember, was taken early in World War II because the United States never built it up. There was a few Marines and there was a few Navy and whatnot. And the Marines had a barracks there. And if you remember the old Pan American Clippers, and they had first started flying those big flying boats. And I never realized until later that they didn't fly at night. They'd take off from, I think it was Alameda, California, and go to Hawaii the first day, spend the night. And then they'd go out to Midway and land, take off overnight. And they had, one of their landings was at Guam. And then they would go on and wind up in the Philippines or in Manila, wherever they were going. Well, they only had a couple of them that kept flights until the war broke out. And anyhow, they had Pan Am Hotel there, too, where they used to spend the night. It was a nice hotel. And we got there, and after the island was more or less secured, we were bivouacked in right close to the old Marine barracks. And we wanted to get boards out of it because they were trying to get us to, well, when in Japan, you use what the Japs left. What I mean, you wanted lumber to try to build a frame for your little tent or your pup tent, whatever, shelter halves. And your shelter half and mine, you could button them together and make a two-man pup tent out of it. And a wooden frame around it was better. And if you get a hold of a parachute, you could put a liner in it and the sun wouldn't beat in. But Guam was another situation because that was the first soil that the United States lost in World War II that was retaken. And it was funny. There was a beautiful girl on that island. And you don't know what it had gone through during the occupation. You don't want to ask. You're too busy trying to make points, you know. But anyhow, you talk to them, you know what I mean. They were like a Eurasian or whatever you want to call it. They were a little slanty and whatnot. You're talking about, are you? And it wasn't half Navy, or I mean half Native and half American. It'd be half American, or I'll get it in a minute, half sailor and half Native, or half Marine and half Native. They broke it down. Yeah. But,
He didn't know that.
No,
what was that one?
But he didn't know any of this stuff. He was just not hearing all this stuff.
right.
Oh, well, after the island was secured, Guam particularly, they brought CBs in there by the boatload. We were still, well, when we were scratching our way back out of that peninsula, what we had fought through 3 days before, the CBs had camp set up, ice cream machines, night movies. If they caught us going over there to look at their movies. And really, they should have been having it because there was still, in fact, there was, I think the last Jap was captured on Guam in 1972. 45 to 72. We've been living in the cave, you know, or what he could scratch. The grocery dumps and whatnot. Because they were, some of them, after they'd gone all up the island, but we didn't go on up the island of Guam. We just down on the tip in the end where they wanted the Orote Peninsula because that was where the airstrip was. And that was always the first thing, get an airstrip, get one built, you know. And the CBs right away started building airstrips. When we first got a bivouac area, what I mean, where we was in pup tents after we had our area secured. And we could have gone back on up on the lines front, but didn't need us, didn't call us. And so we was on standby. But when we first was there, we had 300-gallon water tank trailers to put fresh water in. So they'd found a spring somewhere up they could get good water. On the road, I had to walk or ride shotgun up there on one of the trips. And you couldn't go, I could go faster than this today on a sidewalk. When it would go because of ruts and whatnot. Would you believe 10 days later they was running shore patrol on there, 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. They was building how fast they worked with the equipment that they had. My God, they was building that harbor, after harbor, because they wanted to make it, move it up from Pearl Harbor to Guam, because that was where Nimitz was headquarters was going to be. And they went through, they had a hurricane hit while that was happening, blew a lot of it back out. But we were still on the island. But things have been secured for quite a while. I stayed on the island then until December. I'll tell you that story in a minute, the reason I got out. But they built all that stuff, and I saw 6x6 trucks get in a position to where it went off the block. We stayed there. Get the driver, if he wasn't hurt or killed or whatever, then they get the driver. And bulldozers, same thing. If they get in a problem, and because they were just hauling this coral in. And I don't know whether you've been over here where they build this truck garage. You saw all of that gravel. Yeah. Well, they would haul coral in that way, live coral that shot right out of the edge of the ocean. Now they did that on south. You know what I mean? They did it on Guam. Of course, they did it everywhere. But that live coral, they would go over it, put it down. It was crushed like this gravel, about as fine, and roll it down, sprinkle it with salt water, and that coral would grow. It would be like cement. Well, I wouldn't be surprised what may somehow it still be there. Because, they built, let's put on a leak, at least two B-29 strips there. And I don't know because they did a lot of it on Tinian too. But I can remember when I realized the war was won. I was walking a guard post on Guam, the night that they or the day that they flew the first B-29s to Japan and back from Guadalcanal, Guam, and Tinian. Well, they took off from Tinian and Saipan. Well, I guess they built bigger strips there or something. But anyhow, coming back, it was dark, and they landed some of them on Guam. When I saw those big sons of bitches, excuse my French, flying in as big as they was, I just thought, my God, how could they keep from winning? Well, we knew we were going to win the war, but then we had no idea how many of us were going to be killed because 3 Marine divisions were scheduled to go in at Honshu in the initial landings. And they had the 2nd Division written off in 10 days. Then it would no longer be a fighting unit. And, this is on paper. And that's what got to me in later years when Hiroshima Day, and when they dropped the bomb in Springfield. There'd be some of these hippie-type people go in and pour blood on the sidewalk for the recruiting offices. Garbage like that. And I thought, heaven help those kids. If you hadn't dropped that bomb, they might not have been here. Their daddies would have been killed. I don't care, Army, Navy, Marine, Coast Guard, Red Cross. Can you imagine how many people would have been killed? Look how many we lost at Okinawa. Look how many we lost at Iwo Jima. Yeah, it's just, it's just amazing And to get back, I'd been struck with malaria at the time I went overseas. They always fed us Atabrine. You'd go through chow line while Corman was there, and he threw it way down, and sucked what you swallowed. Well, I'll say urinating because I'm supposed to be nice, a bright yellowish orange. And your skin took yellow. Kind of an Atabrine tan, we called it. And that was supposed to help with the malaria because that was a mosquito. And then I had had that from the get-go, and off and on. But then, so did everybody else. Am I running out of time?
Well, get the question.
Okay, but anyhow,
We want to hear your story.
I wound up with dengue. Dengue, D-E-N-G-U-E, dengue fever, which is a lot like malaria, but a hell of a lot worse. The natives always called it bone-crushing disease, and it hurts. Joints and whatnot. It makes you cry.
You had to deal with
Yeah, you'd help each other, which is like you did with malaria. You got malaria, Corman gave you quinine or whatnot, but they didn't have the facilities to take care of you. Your bunkmate did, Well, your turn today, mine tomorrow. Maybe he never got it, you never knew. And it'd run you 10 days, and the dengue was tough. Well, the Navy run all of our medical branch, There was no Marines, because we had corpsmen dressed like Marines, but they did all our medicine and the doctors and all. But anyhow, they had 10 of us, and some of them, there was one CB, some sailors, and a few Marines, and they were going to take us back to the States for a study. Well, they pulled us real quick. We were there from early in July until this was December, and they flew us out real quick. Supposed to fly all the way to the States. Man, was that heaven! We flew from Guam to Kwajalein. Yeah, to Johnson Island. That's when you landed on that. It looked like a stick of Wrigley's gum because both ends and one side of the island was. But the military used it. Good jumping off place. And But to there, then we got to Hawaii and into a different chain of command. And our orders, we were all enlisted men, and our orders read to fly all the way to the States just before Christmas. And we thought we'd go make stateside by Christmas. And it was a different chain of command, and whoever the top admiral was said nobody but below the rank of major, and I don't know what that was, Navy and the others, would fly to take a ship. Well, they left us there on Hawaii. I had the clothes on my back, 35 cents in my pocket, and they kept us there for 2 weeks. I was mooching clothes in the, I can't remember what they used to call it now, junk bag, anyhow, clothes. And the fit, I was wearing a Navy jacket, and we couldn't go ashore, you know, when we had no money, no nothing. And but anyhow, finally they put us on a slow ship to Frisco, and we went on a ship then on into San Francisco, and got in there the 5th of January, and they kept us outside the harbor because even at that time, 5th of January of 1945, they still had the nets that they put across that they had to open in the morning, and we cruised slow going on in. And going to the Golden Gate Canal, what a sight, because you know, I dreamed of it. You know, always was Golden Gate in 48 and the bread line in 49. That was our ambition.
Wow, what a story.
Well, I could tell lots more of them, but
That's fantastic, Jack. I really appreciate your time. My job's been really easy, just because all the memories you had, you wanted to share with us, and we really appreciate it. It's amazing your story. You know, this is something that.
no, I'll see one of these.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah. I'm gonna give you the DVD. I'm gonna go back and edit all this and give it to Lynn and she'll give it.
When is that? When can
I'll
I?
have that next Monday.
Oh!
I'm gonna do it
Quick
real
turnaround, right?
Yeah. So I wanna.
Oh, I got another half hour I can talk.
He could go on for days.
I know.
Jack, shake my hand. This was great.
Well,
It's so informative. And
well,
he had
I
a
don't
great
imagine you
memory.
heard anything you haven't heard before.
I heard a
No,
lot
no.
I had never before. I can tell you that.
Yeah,
That's
this is a
amazing.
great